Good day, Kavibal, and welcome to our Facebook Live learning session. For the discussion today, the topic will be on decoding dyslexia and other types of reading difficulties. Before we begin, take note of the following reminders. Make sure you are registered to the webinar to have your e-certificate of participation. Visit certificate.vibalgroup.com to generate your proof of attendance. Place your questions on the comment box allotted during the session and they will be addressed by our speaker later on. Share the video using hashtag LearnAs1PH as our official hashtag to our Vibal webinars. Experience learning, Kavibal. And now, to proceed with our webinar this morning, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker today. Teacher Fides wanted to become a reading intervention teacher ever since she can remember. This dream was cultivated by her early memories of growing up in an inclusive classroom and by being taught by memorable reading teachers who opened their eyes to the joys of reading. Teacher Fides started her career as a gurong panghinugod volunteer in Romblon. From then, she became a firm advocate of community education, especially of indigenous peoples and other underserved populations in the Philippines. She furthered her studies on reading intervention and received certifications in various multisensory approaches focusing on teaching children with dyslexia. Teacher Fides now dreams of completing a multisensory reading intervention system in teaching Filipino, as well as train teachers and teachers to be to help struggling readers, especially in the provinces. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Miss Fides Lladoc-Mendoza. Excuse me po ma'am, nakamute pa po kayo.
Ayan, hello. Good morning, everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you about the different kinds of reading difficulties and especially dyslexia. So we will start na po. Okay, so today I'd like to share with you what makes reading very difficult to some students. I'd also like to talk to you about dyslexia and the other types of reading difficulties. So ako po si Teacher Fides Lladoc-Mendoza. I'm a reading intervention specialist from the literacy ladder. Okay, so last year, nung December 2019, na-publish po yung ating ranking sa Filipino, sa ating PISA or the Philippine ranking in PISA. And as we all know, the Philippines ranked last. Okay? And we know that it is because a lot of our students have difficulty reading. In many of the schools in the Philippines, ginugroup lang ang ating mga estudyante bilang readers or non-readers. And there is not enough assessment going on to actually find out bakit ba sila nahihirapan magbasa. And bilang mga guro or bilang mga teachers, we have to be knowledgeable to see and understand why our students are struggling so that we can also help them. So, yung nangyari sa PISA, it opened our eyes, but it's also good. It's also a blessing because we were able to now understand the baselines of our students. And from these baseline scores, we can now work together so that we can improve the performance of our students. Okay? It is also good to understand bakit ba may reading disabilities at ano ba ang pwedeng magawa ng mga guro sa classroom at mga magulang sa bahay para masuportahan ang mga batang hirap magbasa. Okay, according to a lot of studies actually, pero specifically by Gao, by Olson, Keenan, Bryan, and Samuelson in 2014, sabi daw, unless students learn to read by the end of first grade, they are highly likely to remain poor readers and suffer academic difficulties across subjects. Kaya nga, sabi daw, well, the brain, merong optimal time to teach how to read. Okay? And it is, according to science, it is by 7 years old. Ngayon, kung ang bata ay hindi naturuan o nahihirapan magbasa, by the end of first grade, mas mahirap nang mahabol ito. Marami kasing parents parang nagde-deny pa, sasabihin, hintayin muna natin, baka baka late bloomer lang. Pero yung sa paghihintay natin na yon, maraming bata ang nahihirapan na at naaapektuhan ang buong buhay nila dahil hindi sila nakakapagbasa. And this is according to science, sabi daw po, pag hindi talaga naturuan o nahirapan pa rin magbasa, ang mga bata by the end of first grade, hindi na po or mahirap na pong habulin ang difficulty na to unless there will be an intensive reading intervention that will be given to the child. Okay, so let me now present to you the simple view of reading. Alam niyo po, bilang guro, we really have to be equipped also of the theoretical or the ideological foundations. Bakit natin ginagawa ang mga bagay? Dapat po nakaroot ito sa theory. So ito po yung The Simple View of Reading ni Gao and Sumner noong 1986. Although it is called the simple view of reading and it is in a mathematical formula, there's nothing simple with this representation. So according to Gao and Sumner, reading comprehension is the goal of all reading, di ba? Nagpapabasa tayo sa mga bata para maintindihan nila ang pagbabasa. So reading comprehension is actually the goal of all reading. At dalawang factors ang nagdadala para magkaroon ng reading comprehension ng mga bata. The first one is word recognition or decoding. Dapat matuto ang mga bata mag-sound out o pag nakakita sila ng word, matuto silang mabasa ito from print. Okay. At the same time, kailangan din buo ang kanilang language comprehension. Kaya nga, very, very important at nakakatuwa na ang K-12 ni-require na nila ang preschool kasi even before the child learns to read or formally is taught how to read, dapat buo ang kanyang language comprehension. Dapat kinakausap ang mga bata, kinikwentuhan ng mga bata. Alam niyo po yung mga nature walks, yung parang namamasyal kahit sa bakuran para tanungin ng mga bata. Kasi po, ang lahat ng reading and spelling, ang foundation niya ay language comprehension. So, kailangan daw nakakaintindi ang mga bata para pag naturuan mo na siyang magbasa, automatic na magkakaroon ng reading comprehension. So, itong dalawang ito ay very complex and very complex domains na kailangan i-develop sa mga bata para matutong magbasa. So, again, word recognition should be fluent and fast enough so that ang mga batang nagbabasa, yung mental energies nila ma-free para makapag-intindi sila. Imagine a child who is a struggling reader kasi iniisa-isa pa niyang i-sound out. So yung mental energies niya nauubo sa pag-sound out ng mga salita. Pero kung tinuro natin ang word recognition and they were able to read accurately and fluently, then yung kanilang mental energies will now be focused on comprehending the written text. Okay. What about language comprehension? Language comprehension refers to the understanding of oral language, verbal reasoning, and listening comprehension. Kaya napaka-importante na kinikwentuhan ng mga bata at kinakausap ang mga bata. Kasi pag yung dalawang ito ay sementado and very firm in them, then reading comprehension becomes automatic. So ito po yung sinasabi ni Gao and Tumner noong 1986. This simple view of reading is now elaborated by Dr. Holly Scarborough in 2001. Naalala niyo yung sinabi ni Gao and Tumner, sabi niya, language comprehension and word recognition. Pareho lang po yun. Kaya lang, ang sabi ni Scarborough, may mga iba't ibang sub-skills pa na kailangan natin ituro sa mga bata para maging mas magaling na um, mag mas magaling magbasa. Okay? Sabi niya, all of these strands daw should be placed for the child to be able to become a skilled reader. A skilled reader is someone who can read a text and understand it. Okay. So ano to yung mga strands na to? So in language comprehension, dapat daw buo ang background knowledge, may enough vocabulary, naiintindihan ng language structures like grammar and syntax and semantics ng isang language na binabasa, may verbal reasoning like inference and metaphor, at naiintindihan kung paano mag-handle ng isang book na nagbabasa tayo from left to right, may print concepts, may iba't ibang text structures. Noong 1990s, merong mga school of thought or ideologies na binigyan ng too much importance ang language comprehension. Sabi nila, basta yung bata naiintindihan yung binabasa niya, it's okay kahit hindi siya masyadong accurate reader. Kaya nga, nung bago pa lang akong teacher, pag may pinapabasa ako sa mga estudyante, tapos yung sentence is like, the boy is on a horse, pero ang basa ng isang bata ay the boy is on a pony, parang okay lang kasi parang same naman yung ibig sabihin. Okay? Pero according to science and according to research talaga, word recognition ay isa sa pinakamalaking factor para maging skilled reader. Kaya nga kailangan matutunan ng mga bata na ang accurate at fluent reading. So kailangan tong ituro explicitly. Okay? So from there, malalaman na natin ano nga ba ang mga types ng reading difficulties? Bakit nahihirapan ang mga batang magbasa? Ang maganda dito kasi, ang reading difficulties, merong medical basis yan. According to studies, merong genetic, biological, and environmental factors that contribute to the growth of reading skills. And pag nag-break down ang mga domains of reading, magli-lead ito sa reading difficulty. Bilang mga guro, hindi tayo train para maging diagnostician. Diba? Parang pag meron kayong estudyante sa classroom ninyo, nahihirapan magbasa, hindi pwedeng nagda-diagnose tayo. Bigla-bigla, sasabihin natin, ay, dyslexic yan. O kaya, ay, ano yan, non-reader yan kasi mababa yung IQ niya. So it is not our job primarily to diagnose children kasi hindi yun kasama sa expertise natin. Pero ang mga teachers kailangan maintindihan nila ang major types of reading difficulties so that they can develop a clinical eye. Anong ibig sabihin ng clinical eye? Ang mga teachers kasi, ang unang magka-catch kung may mali, o unang makakapansin kung may mali sa development ng bata. Para yung batang may lagnat, pag pumunta sa classroom ninyo, hindi nyo agad i-diagnose na kung ano ang meron siyang sakit. Pero mapapansin natin na, kunyari, may lagnat yung bata so that we can assess and we can refer to the specialist. Ganun din po ang role natin bilang mga guro pag nakakapansin tayo ng reading difficulties. So pag ang bata ay hirap magbasa, it is not our job to diagnose, but it is our job to screen them, to gather evidences kung meron kayong mga seat works niya o quizzes niya na magpapakita ng evidences kung paano siya nahihirapan magbasa. It is part of our job. And it is part of our job to provide quality reading education so that difficulties can be lessened. And then, it is also our job to refer to specialists. Um, Maraming mga bata na nahihirapan magbasa dahil hindi naturuan, baka hindi natuturuan sa bahay. So, if that is the problem, then meron tayong solusyon. Meron namang mga bata na meron talagang special need when it comes to reading difficulties. Ang gagawin naman doon, kailangan siyang i-refer sa isang reading intervention specialist o kaya sa developmental pediatrician. So marami naman magsasabi, paano yan? Mahirap ang buhay, hindi lahat ng bata kayang mag-refer sa isang developmental pediatrician. Although kung ganon, we have to do something about it kasi po pag hindi natin natulungan ng isang bata na hirap magbasa, it will really affect his whole life. Yung kanyang chances of getting a job will be affected. At alam nyo ba, maraming studies na ang mga bata o ang mga tao na nasa prison, many of them have difficulty reading. So there are studies saying that some people dabble in petty crimes or maraming nagdadabble sa mga crime because hirap silang magbasa. Many of them have decided to drop out from school kasi nga hindi natulungan at hindi na-identify na hirap palang magbasa. Okay? So, merong, sabi ni Spears Worling, isang reading specialist, cognitive reading specialist, merong daw 3 factors kung bakit ang isang bata ay hirap magbasa. Okay? The first one is language comprehension. Ito yung mga bata na merong vocabulary weakness o hirap sa pag-intindi, especially pag abstract reasoning and logical thinking. Ito yung mga bata rin na hindi masyado naiintindihan ng isang language system. Kaya maraming mga batang Pilipino kasama dito. So kahit wala silang special need, kung hindi nila mastered ang English language, then they are part of this factor for reading difficulty. Alam nyo ba na there is also a new breed, especially in the private schools, na this time naman, hirap naman sa Filipino ang mga batang Pilipino natin. Masyado silang parang English speakers na sila, ang Filipino ay hirap na rin, hirap silang intindihin. At papasok din yan dito sa factor na to na ang language comprehension ay hindi buo sa isang wika, kaya nahihirapan silang magbasa. The second factor is the phonological deficit. Pag sinabing phonological deficit, merong mga bata na differently wired ang brain nila. Yung brain nila nahihirapan magproseso ng sounds in words or yung tinatawag na phonological awareness. For example, meron akong sinabing salita, nahihirapan silang i-break down ang sound sa isang salita. For example, in the word clamp, for example, nahihirapan sila na sabihin na ang sound sa clamp ay k, l, a, m, p. Okay. And this is not because mababa yung IQ nila or hindi sila or subpar ang intelligence nila. Meron talagang mga brains na ang core difficulty talaga ay ang sensitivity to sounds in words. Hindi rin sila hearing impaired. Talagang yung brain lang nila nahihirapan to listen to sounds. And since English and Filipino are alphabetical languages, meaning we use sounds to spell and read, pag hirap ka at hindi ka masyadong sensitive sa sounds of a language, magsasuffer ang inyong reading at spelling in alphabetical languages like Filipino and English. Okay, according to Spears Worling, another factor for having reading difficulties is called rapid naming. Ito naman, yung speed and accuracy of printed word recognition. Meron kasing tinatawag na dual processing na pag ang bata ay nakakita ng isang printed letter or printed symbol, kailangan pinaprocess yun ng brain niya, tapos nasasabi niya yon rapidly and accurately. Maraming bata na hirap sa rapid naming kasi pag nakakita ng isang symbol, nalilito siya, B ba yun? D ba yun? Nahihirapan yung brain niya mag-process, and at the same time, nahihirapan yung mouth niya to identify what it is. And if the child has rapid naming difficulties, it is nakaka-confuse magbasa. So, ito yung tatlo daw na factors kung bakit nagkakaroon ng reading difficulties. Ang nakakatuwa dito, meron silang overlap. So minsan, ang phonological deficit and rapid naming, pag nag-overlap, mas mahirap siyang i-intervene. Meron ding overlap na lahat. Meron. So iisa-isahin natin ang major types of reading difficulties. But before we can make assumptions, we should be able to assess children. So, ang mga bata ay, papakita ko lang po ulit sa inyo. So, according to Spear-Swirling, language comprehension, phonological deficit, and rapid naming. So, ang mga bata ay ina-assess sa tatlong domains na ito. So, the first one is oral language and comprehension assessment. Sa schools natin, maraming assessment, kagaya ng PhilED, na nag-a-assess ng fluency and comprehension ng mga bata. Para sa mga batang may mas espesyal na pangangailangan, they go to a speech language therapist kung saan nagkakaroon ng oral language assessment na mas malalim or oral language evaluation. Pwede din silang pumunta sa developmental pediatrician or educational psychologist. And all of these professionals assess the oral language and comprehension of the child. So makikita nila, ano ba dun sa strands ang hirap yung bata kaya hindi siya nakakaintindi ng binabasa. So this is one literacy assessment for one domain of the factors that affect reading difficulty. Okay. Another one is when we assess phonological awareness. Recently, naging buzzword ang phonological awareness sa ating mga eskwelahan, at nakakatuwa kasi na naging aware na ang mga teachers na ang pagbabasa ay hindi agad letter forms. Kailangan talaga maintindihan ng bata na ang lahat ng salitang nababasa ay based sa sound. Kaya nga ngayon, in preschool and preschool hanggang grade 2, ini-explicitly teach na ang phonological awareness. And one type of assessment na ginagawa po sa mga batang hirap magbasa ay ang phonological awareness test. Ang mga reading specialists po ay may mga special na assessment to formally assess phonological awareness skills. However, teachers can also do many informal screeners for phonological awareness. So, ito yung mga test na nag-check kung alam ng bata o nakaka-identify ang bata ng syllables, ng rhymes, kung kaya niyang marinig kung ilang words ang isang sentence. Kunyari, pag sinabi kong, the cat is up the tree, how many words are there? So, dapat the child can segment the words as the cat is up the tree. So, ganon po. And then, the last skill is phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is a very critical skill in reading. When we say phonemic awareness, ito yung sensitivity o awareness na ang salita ay made up of single sounds or phonemes. Para ang bata ay maging skilled reader, dapat maintindihan niya ang pag-segment ng single sounds in words at pag-blend ng single sounds. Kasi pag tayo ay nagbe-blend ng phonemes, tayo ay nagde-decode o nagbabasa. Pag tayo naman ay nagse-segment o naghihimay ng phoneme, tayo naman ay nagsispell. So for example, sabi ko, spell the word flush, flush. So how many sounds in the word flush? The child should be sensitive enough to segment that the word flush has l, a, sh. There are four phonemes, pero pag ni-represent natin yon, ang f will have the letter F, yung ay L, yung a ay U, at yung sh, even if it's only one sound, it's represented by two letters. So yun po yung very critical. And according to studies, phonological awareness, phonemic awareness is a critical component because at the age of 5 years old, kaya mo nang ma-predict kung ang bata ay magsa-struggle magbasa. Kung hirap siya sa phonemic awareness, by grade 3, magsa-struggle na siyang magbasa. Kaya nga, hindi totoo na you can only diagnose reading difficulty pag nagbabasa na. So may mga telltale signs or red flags na agad na pwedeng makita ng teacher. Kaya ang isang bata hirap sa rhyming production or rhyme identification, alam na niya, itatag na niya yun na, parang at risk itong batang ito at kailangan siyang bantayan at bigyan ng more intensive na reading intervention para by the time na tuturuan na siya formaling magbasa, ay makaka-catch up siya sa kanyang mga peers. Okay? The next assessment, okay, this is a type of Elkonin box. Yung Elkonin box is a phonemic awareness task. So, ang gagawin lang ay may papakita kang picture. Kunyari, in this example, my picture is a snake. Okay, and then I will ask the child, you have to count all the sounds that you hear in the word snake. Okay, and ano nga ba yung maririnig sa word na snake? Ilan nga pala ang sounds sa snake? So let's try it out. A, so may 4 na sounds sa snakes. Marami kasing phonemic awareness activity na nilabas na nila agad yung boxes. Kaya alam na ng bata na may 4 sounds. It is better kung papabilangin mo muna yung sounds bago mo sabihin na there are 4 sounds and then let's segment it. So it will be a. So there are 4 sounds in the word snake, but when you spell it, there are 5 letters. So iba talaga ang phonemic awareness sa spelling. Hindi lang ito dapat ginagawa in English, dapat in Filipino. So marami na ring programs ngayon in Filipino na nagpo-promote ng phonemic awareness. So kunyari, sa salitang atis, ilan ang syllables? Atis. Ilan naman ang phonemes or individual sounds? So ang individual sounds ay a, t, e. At sabi nga ng research, pag ang bata ay magaling sa phonemic awareness, mas madali siyang matutong magbasa at mag-spell. Okay. This is another type of literacy assessment according to Spears-Werling. Ang tinatawag naman dito ay rapid naming assessment. Ang rapid naming naman, chine-check kung gaano kabilis at accurate yung bata. Pag nakakita siya ng isang symbol, dapat na-name niya yon. So, kunyari, may practice sheet muna. Kunyari, anong color ito? Sasabihin ng bata, black, red, yellow, blue, green. And then, the teacher or the reading specialist will say, sige nga, I want you to name all the colors from here up until the final element and I will time you. So, pag sinabing go, ita-time na niya and the assessor will now check how fast and how accurate the child was able to say the color name. So itong mga assessments na ito ay masiscreen ang mga batang hirap sa rapid naming. At according to research again, if a child has very poor rapid naming dahil hirap sa working memory niya, the child is also at risk for reading difficulties. So, let us return to the simple view of reading. Sabi ni Gao and Tumner, ang reading daw ay pwedeng i-represent as a mathematical equation. Sabi daw, word reading times language comprehension is equal to reading comprehension. Ang ginamit niya ay times kasi nga hindi lang siya add-on. Sinasabi daw na pag mas pas, pag talagang mas malaki to, imagine this is 2 and this is 2, minamagnify niya or minumultiply niya ang kagalingan mong magbasa depende sa skills mo sa language comprehension at sa word recognition. So now, let me now explain to you that using the simple view of reading model, we can now make a quadrant. Imagine that this is the word reading continuum. So dito, yung poor word recognition at ito naman yung good word recognition. And then this is the continuum for language comprehension. So here I said this is for language comprehension and good language comprehension. So dito pa lang magagraph na natin ang mga struggling readers. Okay, kunyari, poor word recognition and poor language comprehension, anong tawag sa struggling reader na yon? Pag poor word recognition pero good language comprehension, ano naman ang tawag? So, isa-isahin po natin yan. Okay? Alright. So, when developmental pediatricians, educational psychologists, and reading specialists assess literacy skills of children, gumagamit ng standardized assessment at ito ay norm reference. So kung naaalala niyo po yung stat ninyo, sabi daw, when we give the same test to people of the same age, ang scores will fall here in the average. Okay? Tapos, pag ikaw naman ay below average, yung score mo nandito. At kung hirap na hirap ka and you need special education or special intervention, yung scores mo nandito sa borderline to low. On the bell curve din, meron ding mga tinatawag na gifted, high average, and superior. So, the assessments that are given to children with learning disabilities or reading disabilities ay normative or norm reference. However, as teachers, we can also do informal assessments. Yun lang, hindi siya normative or hindi mo makikita kung average pa siya, low or below average. But informal assessments are still very important kasi it will now inform you how to teach the child. It will inform you and provide you decision-making points. Paano mo ba siya tuturuan? Paano mo siya igugrupo? Okay? So let me show you one example of an assessment I made with a child. Okay? So when I did an assessment for this child, yung word reading niya, low. Yung spelling niya, borderline. Pero, when I did comprehension, imagine, no, hindi siya masyadong makabasa, pero yung comprehension niya low average pa. And then when I asked him to do comprehension tasks, nag-low average pa rin siya. Okay? So pag bumalik tayo kay Gao and Tumner, word reading is very poor, kaya lang meron siyang language comprehension. However, 0 times 1 is still a poor reader. Ang tawag sa profile na to ay dyslexia profile. Ang mga batang may dyslexia, walang problema sa language comprehension. They are very verbal, nakakausap, pwede mong ipasummarize yung napanood niyang movie at kaya niyang gawin yon. Kaya lang, bakit hirap siyang magbasa? So ito yung is first profile natin, tinatawag nating dyslexia profile. So according to dyslexia profile, ang hirap silang gawin ay phonological deficit and rapid naming. Walang problema sa language comprehension, buong-buo ang pagkaintindi sa language, kaya lang meron yung brain wiring nila ay hirap uh, to be sensitive to the sounds in words at nahihirapan silang i-name yung nakikita nilang symbols on paper. Okay? Pag isa lang yung hirap sila, kunyari phonological deficit lang or rapid naming lang sila hirap, ang tawag dito single deficit lang. Pero most children with dyslexia, they have a combination or double deficit sila ng phonological deficit at saka rapid naming. So pag mas dalawa yung apektado, mas mahirap siyang i-intervene and they will now require a more intensive reading intervention para makahabol sila. Okay? So again, pag sinabing dyslexia profile, hindi apektado ang IQ. Ibig sabihin, they have average to above average IQ, but their brain has a different wiring. Kaya hirap silang maging sensitive to the sound at saka meron silang poor fluency or rapid naming skills. So, dun sa quadrant natin, nandito siya. So, poor ang word recognition, pero very good ang language comprehension. Okay? So, ito po ang formal definition ng International Dyslexia Association. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language that is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction. Secondary consequences may include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. So ito yung formal definition ng International Dyslexia Association in 2003. At maganda na nagkaroon sila ng formal definition kasi dati nung wala pang formal definition, lahat ng hirap magbasa parang naging tapunan na lang yung word na yung condition na dyslexia. So given a formal definition of dyslexia, nagkaroon na siya ng limitations and boundaries. Kaya lang bilang mga guro, ang haba masyado noong definition, ang hirap intindihin. Kaya himay-himayin natin. So ang dyslexia daw ay neurobiological in origin. Pag sinabing neurobiological, it is brain-based. Ibig sabihin, hindi totoo na pag kumain ka ng certain food, uminom ka ng certain na gatas, o magkaroon ka ng special na glasses, makukure ka ng dyslexia. So may mga fish oil, o kaya kung ano-anong oil na gusto nilang ipahid para ma-cure daw ang isang bata ng dyslexia. But no, it is actually neurobiological, meaning yung brain ng mga batang may dyslexia, yun yung may konting difference in the wiring. And when we say biological, it also runs in families. So may mga ibang exceptionalities na hindi natin alam kung bakit meron silang exceptionality na ganon. But ang dyslexia kasi, it is proven that it runs in families. So talagang namamana siya. Minsan, nag-skip ng generation, kaya sasabihin ng mga magulang, ay wala akong dyslexia. Pero yung pala, yung mga ninunununo nila, or kasi nag-skip siya ng generation, yun yung may mga merong difficulty na dyslexia. Okay. The second one is, it is characterized by difficulties with word recognition and spelling and decoding abilities. So ang kanilang hirap lang ay word level spelling and decoding. Ibig sabihin, hindi sila, pag higher level na of comprehension, kaya na nila or naiintindihan na nila Pero yung pagsulat ng word level at saka pag-decode, dun sila hirap. Okay. The next one is, ang kanilang core deficit ay ang kanilang paghirap sila sa phonological component of language. Meaning, yun nga, hindi sila sensitive or hindi sensitive sa sounds ng language. Hindi dahil bingi sila, pero kasi yung brain nila nahihirapan mag-process ng phonemes. And I'd like to emphasize this word. It is unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of classroom instruction. Yung kanilang pagkahirap magbasa ay unexpected given their IQ or their intelligence or even the classroom setting. So kahit naturuan na sila, unexpected na hindi pa rin silang magbasa. Hindi pa rin sila marunong magbasa. So that is the dyslexia profile. Ang malungkot sa dyslexia, pag hindi siya na-treat or hindi siya na-intervene by grade 2 to 3, mas marami na ang kanyang magiging difficulties. Magiging compounded na yung difficulties niya. Kung naaalala niyo si Gao and Tumner, di ba may language comprehension siya, hirap lang siya sa word recognition, pero pag tumagal at hindi natulungan, pati yung language comprehension niya, bababa na din kasi hindi na siya nakakabasa. So, nai-impede yung growth niya sa vocabulary and background knowledge. Okay, so let's have very fast lang. Ano yung mga dyslexia facts? It is a language-based disorder, meaning if you have dyslexia and you are in a society using an alphabetic language or gumagamit ang language na yon ng sounds when it comes to decoding and spelling, then you will be affected. So, academic performance mo ay bababa. So, bilang mga Pilipino, ang Filipino language natin, alphabetic language siya at saka English. Ay isa ring alphabetic language. Kaya ang mga batang may dyslexia talagang bound na mahirapan magbasa in both languages in school. It is also a brain-based disorder and it runs in families. So ito yung nakasulat na sa DSM-5. Okay? Sabi daw, about 10% in the general population have varying degrees of dyslexia. This is according to the International Dyslexia Association. Marami akong teachers na meet, sinasabi nila, takal ko ng teacher pero wala pa ako naging student na dyslexic. So according to statistics, hindi pwede yon kasi about 10% in the general population may varying degrees of dyslexia. So that teacher might not baka hindi lang niya hindi siya marunong pumansin ng dyslexia red flags, pero I assure you na pag matagal na kayo sa classroom, siguro kahit 3 years kayo sa classroom, meron na kayong na-meet na isang dyslexic na bata. Okay? Very few Filipino children with dyslexia are identified, properly diagnosed, and provided with accommodations and interventions. So according to one talk that I attended to, less than 1% daw na mga batang may dyslexia ang na-identify at nabibigyan ng tamang diagnosis at accommodation. Maraming mga batang may dyslexia ang nag-group as non-readers, pero hindi nila nalaman na bakit kaya non-reader to. So group lang siya as non-readers, tapos hindi na siya natutulungan. Hanggang naalala niyo yung sinabi, secondary consequences, pag lumampas ng grade 3 at hindi natulungan, yung secondary consequences niya, meaning pati language comprehension niya, bababa na din. Okay? And dyslexia is a silent disability because hindi kagaya ng ibang exceptionalities, ang dyslexia wala siyang facial or physical manifestations. Ang mga batang may dyslexia ay kamukha ng mga regular children, kaya na-mistake natin sila as lazy, ay nako, tamad-tamad, bobo, pero in fact, meron lang silang dyslexia. Okay. Dyslexia can be found in both boys and girls in similar numbers. Meron kasing statistics dati na mas madami daw in boys. Pero ngayon, recent research has proven that pareho lang na both boys and girls can have dyslexia. Although mas nadadiagnose sa boys kasi nga ang mga girls pag may dyslexia, mas tahimik, mas nagtatago. Yung mga boys kasi mas halata pag hindi makabasa, di ba? Kaya a lot of, yung statistics nga ng mga developmental pediatrician, nare-refer ang mga boys na may dyslexia pala because of behavior. Akala ng mga magulang ADHD. Yung pala, it's really dyslexia kasi nagkaroon na siya ng overt behavior kasi hindi siya makabasa. So dyslexia, hindi lagi, mostly, comorbid siya sa other disorders such as speech delay, ADHD, and other learning disabilities. And ang brains of those with dyslexia are physically and functionally different than typical readers. At napuprove na natin yan because of the fMRI. Sabi daw sa fMRI ng mga cognitive researchers, pag pinabasa mo ang batang may dyslexia, yung brain niya hindi masyadong nagla-light up, underactivated siya compared to those who are regular readers. The good thing is, reading intervention can work wonders. Pag tama ang pagturo natin and intensive enough and explicitly enough, kahit ang bata, ang brain ng may dyslexia ay pag naturuan, magmumukha siyang regular reader's brain. Kaya nga, very important that we catch them early and that they are given proper diagnosis and intervention. Alright. So, hindi totoo na ang mga batang may dyslexia parang duling-duling o nakakakita ng letters backwards. Yun nga. So, meron ako dating nakausap, sabi niya, yung anak daw niya baliktad magbasa. So yung kunyari, yung mu daw, M-O-O, ang basa daw nung anak niya, So ang ginagawa daw niya, para daw magsabi ng tama na mu, isusulat na lang daw niya as Pero it is actually a myth. People with dyslexia see things like we all do, but nahihirapan nga mag-process yung brain. Dyslexia affects people all over the world. So, hindi siya pang mayaman lang na condition, hindi siya because of sex, hindi siya race, nationality, age, and social classes. Meron din ako nakakausap na matatanda, sinasabi nung panahon namin, wala naman dyslexia eh. Ngayon kasi, powerful na yung assessment natin, kaya mas na-identify na mga batang may dyslexia. Dyslexia is a lifelong condition, hindi siya sakit na pag uminom ka ng gamot ay miraculously gagaling ka na. But reading intervention can transform a dyslexic person's brain. So, given the correct intervention, the child with dyslexia can learn strategies so that mas madadalian siyang magbasa at mag-spell. Okay, so that is the dyslexia profile. What about this one? Okay, hindi na siya. Okay, what about this one? Isang batang inassess ko, ang word reading ay above average. Ang spelling, napakagaling. Very high, above average. Okay, however, pag dumating sa fluency, ang galing din magbasa. Pero pag dumating sa comprehension, hindi naiintindihan yung binabasa niya. So, ang tawag naman dito ay hyperlexia. According to Spears-Swerling, hyperlexia profile. Sa hyperlexia profile naman, ang mga bata, word reading ang bilis magbasa. Pero pag tinanong mo na kung ano yung what he read about, hindi niya wala na siyang masabi. Hindi na niya masabi kung anong naiintindihan niya. So, according to Gao and Tumler, even if word reading is 1, pero hindi naiintindihan ng binabasa niya, then reading comprehension did not happen also. So this is hyperlexia. Ito pala, yan. So, for language comprehension, but good word recognition. Maraming bata ang lumalapit sa akin, maraming magulang ang lumalapit sa akin, sinasabi nila, magaling naman yung anak ko magbasa eh. Pero dahil hindi siya nakakaintindi, they are still part of struggling readers. Ito kasi mahirap siyang i-pinpoint kasi nga in our classrooms, magaling siya magbasa. Kaya lang, magaling as in nakaka-decode, pero hindi maintindihan kung ano yung binabasa niya. Okay. So children with hyperlexia learn to decode words very early. Sometimes as toddlers or preschoolers, bigla na lang marunong magbasa. Ito yung mga parang sa Facebook, yung mga nanay, parang pine-present na nila yung anak nila, toddler pa lang marunong nang magbasa. This is the true hyperlexia profile. They show an early interest on words and letters, and their exceptional word recognition ability is often apparent by age 5, but they have extremely poor reading comprehension. In addition, there are deficits in reasoning and abstract problem solving. So, hindi lahat, pero marami tayong mga kaibigang nasa autism spectrum ang true hyperlexic yung profile. Meaning, bata pa lang, ang galing na magbasa, nakaka alphabetical order na, pero pag tinanong, nahihirapan uh, mag-express kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng binasa niya. Now, according to Carol Tolman, ang second language learners ay part dito sa poor readers na ito. Yung parang good decoders pero poor language comprehension. So, these children can decode but have difficulty understanding the text because of low vocabulary knowledge and because they have not mastered the syntax and semantics of the language used in the passage. So kagaya ng mga Filipino learners natin, nahirap makaintindi ng English, nababasa nila pero nahihirapan mag-English, or mayroon din tayong subtypes of learners ngayon na nakakabasa in Filipino pero hindi naman naiintindihan yung Filipino. So ito yung mga tinatawag na second language learners profile, and they are still part of our struggling readers. Okay. Yan. Okay. Now, I will present to you my third child. So, itong third child ko, sa word reading and spelling, borderline. Alala niyo yung borderline, ibig sabihin dun sa normative curve natin, dito siya sa leftmost, borderline siya. And then when I check fluency and comprehension, borderline din. Ang tawag dito sa profile na to ay garden variety profile. Meaning, hirap magbasa, hirap mag-decode, hirap makaintindi ng language, therefore, mas compounded yung difficulty niya in reading kasi nga parehas na 0. So 0 times 0 is equal to 0. So children with garden variety reading profile or mixed reading difficulties, they have poor word recognition and poor language comprehension skills. So children with garden variety profile have difficulties with word recognition, hirap mag-decode, and low comprehension abilities and vocabulary knowledge. And this is according to Louise Pierce Worling. So ito po ang main types of our struggling readers. So we have the dyslexia profile, the hyperlexia profile, o marunong mag-decode pero hirap sa language. Meron tayong dyslexia na hirap mag-decode pero ang galing ng language comprehension, at meron din tayong mga batang hirap sa word recognition, hirap pa rin sa poor language comprehension. So bilang mga teachers, we really have to see bakit ba non-readers or poor readers ang mga batang ito. And by using screeners or informal assessments, we will now be able to classify them so that we can group them and we can teach them accordingly. And also, we can also refer them to specialists. So, according to, let me summarize, according to Gao and Sumner, there can be no reading if the child cannot decode, and this is the dyslexia profile. There is no reading if the child cannot comprehend. This is the hyperlexia profile. So, may word reading pero hindi makakomprehend. There is no reading if the child cannot decode and cannot comprehend. And reading occurs, ito naman yung typical reader, reading occurs when the child can decode and has good language comprehension. So to ensure that a child can understand what he is reading. Dapat meron siyang good word recognition and good comprehension. So there, dapat ito yung goal natin bilang mga guro. Ituturo ang both language comprehension and word recognition. So, yan. Now, balik tayo. The truth is, distinguishing the cause of a reading problem is not always possible, lalo na pandemic ngayon, maraming mga Pilipino hindi ma-afford ang specialized assessment. Kaya nga, malaki ang burden sa ating mga teachers kasi all teachers need to develop that clinical eye so that we can know what kind of reading difficulty a child has so that we can help them as much as we can. However, hindi na natin kailangan hintayin ang definitive diagnosis. What we can do is for children who are at risk or falling behind is to teach them. Reading intervention should not be delayed until a definitive diagnosis. So as early as 5 years old, pag nakikita niyo ng may red flag, we have to intensively teach them with good and quality literacy instruction so that they will not fall behind. And alam nyo, bilang mga guro, meron tayong power to change the trajectory of a child's life. Kaya nga, very important na pag pansin na natin, matutulungan na natin silang magbasa kasi if we do not or if we withdraw our help, they will be affected for life. So, the good news from all these reports is that the devastating educational and social consequences of reading failure can be prevented or reduced through quality literacy instruction. So, kailangan may quality literacy instruction and mabibigay natin ang quality literacy instruction kung tayo bilang mga teachers ay equipped sa ano ba ang sinasabi ng research when it comes to reading. So, marami kasing mga teachers ang hindi naturuan or hindi adequate ang pagtuturo o ang kaalaman about reading when they were in college. Kaya kailangan natin, it is part of our responsibility to equip ourselves so that we know how to teach with quality literacy education. And last is, sabi nga daw, according to science, 90 to 95% of all students, including those with learning disabilities, should be able to read. Ang laki nun, no? 90 to 95% dapat natutong magbasa if we just give intensive and comprehensive quality education by well-informed and supportive teachers. So yun po ang advocacy natin ngayon. Kailangan ang mga teachers na nagtuturong magbasa, they should be educated also about what is the best way to teach or how to best teach reading. Yes, that is according to National Reading Panel noong 2000. And lastly, I will end with informed teachers are our best insurance against reading failure. While programs are very helpful tools, programs do not teach, teachers do. So nasa ating mga kamay bilang mga guro para ma-prevent ang reading failure. Ang maganda ngayon, yung technology natin, maraming free. All we have to do is use the correct keywords to Google everything. And doon po malalaman natin at matuturuan natin ang sarili natin kung paano best magturo sa mga bata. So, salamat po. Ito po ang aking mga references. Maraming salamat po. Ako po si Teacher Fides Mendoza ng Literacy Ladder. And if you want to connect, if you have questions or if you just want to connect, you may reach me at fides.literacyladder@gmail.com. So maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now we will proceed to the question and answer portion. Our first question is from French Ordonio Haravata. May chance pa po ba na matutong magbasa ang mga matatanda na? Ano pong pwedeng gawin ng kamag-anak niya para po matuto siya? Mahirap na po bang matuto ang matanda na?
Okay. Merong optimal stage talaga when it comes to reading. Sabi daw talaga, when we catch them early, mga 5 years old hanggang grade 3, mga hanggang 9 years old, yun yung parang optimal stage to teach reading. However, kahit matanda na, dapat hindi natin i-withdraw ang reading intervention. Hindi dapat maging factor ang age na, ay matanda na, wag na natin turuan magbasa. It will become harder and more and longer ang proseso ng pagtuturo, but our brain is so plastic. Ibig sabihin, pag tinuruan natin, yung brain natin will physically change itself and will really teach. Pag tinuruan with intervention talaga and intensive teaching, our brain, even if that person is already old, will change and learn. So, yes, mas totoong mas mahirap, mas matagal, but hindi natin dapat gamiting rason ang katandaan para hindi naturuan magbasa. For the relatives, kailangan talaga nilang mag-equip ng sarili nila. Kasi kahit meron tayong willing heart to help a child or a person na may reading difficulties, kung hindi tama yung ating strategy, then it will not work. So, kailangan we have to equip ourselves to learn how to best teach a struggling reader.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Our next question is from Trisha Camille Frani. Are both special and regular students can be affected or diagnosed with the different reading difficulties?
Ibig bang sabihin na pareho lang ba? What do you mean? Ulit yung tanong, please.
Can both special and regular students be affected or diagnosed with the different reading difficulties?
Diagnosed. Well, if a child is struggling how to read, it doesn't really matter kung ano yung diagnosis niya. Ang magmamatter ay kung gaano natin agad-agad mabibigyan ang reading intervention. So that's why we have to assess and see ano ba doon sa domains ang hirap siya, so that we can provide the appropriate intervention. So to check if kung kailangan ng formal diagnosis, hindi na po kailangan. So even regular children, kung makikita mong hirap sila, then we give the intervention needed na. So they don't have to be special children to be given reading intervention.
Thank you, ma'am. Follow-up question for that from Sheila Claveria Frias. How about po yung mga bata na may autism? May chance pa po ba silang ma-improve ang reading disability?
Of course, yes. Dun sa mga batang may autism, most of them fall in the hyperlexia profile, di ba? Na hirap ang comprehension, language comprehension, but they are very good decoders. Some of them are very good decoders. So, to develop that, kailangan natin ng help ng isang reading intervention teacher, ng school teacher, at ng speech therapist. Kasi lahat ito ay to intervene the language foundation of the child. Pag non-verbal ang bata, kailangan talagang buuin yung language component ng batang may autism, so that pag marunong na siyang mag-decode, it will come naturally ang kanyang reading comprehension.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question
laging
is
may
from...
pag-asa pala. So, ang ano doon, laging may pag-asa. Yan. Sige, ma'am. Alright.
Our next question is from Norilyn Clarino. What is the best strategy to teach reading during distance learning? What online reading program should be implemented in the distance learning?
Okay. So, ako talaga hindi ako naniniwala sa isang programa lang. I really think that a teacher should equip herself or himself to the best practices. So, hindi siya program-based, Pero a best reading teacher is someone who is well informed and continuously seeks to learn the reading, the best practices in reading. With that, paano ba ang best practice ng reading? Kahit online, as long as it is explicitly taught, dapat systematic, and it should cover the 5 pillars of reading instruction, which are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So, dapat yung 5 pillars na yun ay explicitly and systematically taught. Yun ang best way to
Thank you,
teach
ma'am. And
reading.
our last question is from Christine Amor Salave Katikista. Good morning, ma'am. What would teachers do when we see red flag in a child in terms of reading, and how to deal with the parents upon telling them the situation?
Okay, very good question. As teachers, our role is to, yan, tama yan, to have, to be able to catch them. Tayo yung dapat ang magsasabi na, oops, may something, may mali or may hirap na bata. Okay? Our job is not to diagnose, kaya hindi pwedeng kausapin mo yung parent para sabihin na, oy, merong dyslexia yung bata, o parang autistic yung anak mo, hindi pwedeng ganon. So, our job is to gather evidences, parang ipakita mo ano yung tinuro mo na, paano ka nagturo, ano yung response ng bata, to gather evidences and then to refer to a specialist. So that is our job. And our job talaga, our main job is to teach with quality instruction para ang mga bata mape-prevent na to have reading difficulties.
That's all the questions we have for now. Any last reminders to our viewers for today, ma'am?
Yun, I'd like everyone to, bilang teacher, we really have to equip ourselves. So maraming free na ngayon. So we can just Google and really learn and even reach out to specialists. You know, dahil pandemic ngayon, ang daming nag-share for free, ang daming nagbibigay ng kaalaman nila. All you have to do is ask. Okay? I'd also like everyone to check the Facebook of Council of Reading Intervention Specialists, or CORIS, that's CORIS. We are a group of reading intervention specialists in the Philippines, and many of us are willing to help teachers and students in the public and the private school po. So please like the Facebook page, and you can email us if you need any help po.
There we have it. In behalf of Vibal Group Incorporated, I would like to thank our speaker for today for this eye-opening and insightful learning session. It is an honor to have you with us today, ma'am. And to all our Kavibal viewers, all thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. Don't forget to register to get your e-certificate of participation. We also encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official Vibal Facebook and YouTube channel. Muli, maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating lahat.